During the landslide, Claire and I fell together. My fiancé, Adrien, picked Claire up and carried her away right in front of me. He left me there alone. Everyone rushed Claire to the hospital. No one cared about me while I was in the hospital, rescued by others. My fiancé never once came to see me, but now that I no longer love him, he cries, his eyes red, telling me he loves me. When the landslide happened, I had been standing on solid ground until Claire grabbed me, pulling me down with her. Adrien, his face etched with panic, immediately lifted Claire onto his back and left, without even a single glance in my direction. The truth is, I was hurt far more seriously than Claire. We were stopped by a tree, but I was the unlucky one who hit it first. A branch had pierced straight through my foot. Because I broke her fall, she only had a few scratches. The moment Adrien arrived, my tears started to flow. But before I could even speak, he had hoisted Claire up and was gone. From beginning to end, he never once looked at me. It wasn't until my friend Maya and a group of park rangers rescued me that I finally gave in to the pain and passed out. I lay in a hospital bed for a month. During that time, Maya cried every time she visited. "I'm so sorry, Alara. It's all my fault. I thought Adrien would save you, so I just foolishly followed them." By the time I came back with help, I only saw Adrien putting a girl into the ambulance. "I thought it was you, so I didn't think twice. I'm so sorry, Alara. If only I had paid more attention." I patted Maya's head reassuringly. It really wasn't her fault. After all, I too had believed Adrien would save me, even after he left with Claire. I held on to the hope that he would send someone back for me. Although the branch had gone through my foot, it was a blessing it hadn't hit the bone. With enough time, it would heal. The day I was discharged, Adrien came to pick me up. He looked haggard. He was so careful when he lifted me into the car, as if I were some priceless treasure. But when we arrived at his home and I saw Claire, my fingers curled slightly. I loved being near Adrien, so even after moving out on my own, I bought an apartment right across from his, making us neighbors. A lot of people were at Adrien's place. All his friends. "Alara, everyone's here to celebrate you coming home." Before he could finish, a sweet, feminine voice called out, "Adrien, where do you keep the spices? I'll get them. You'll never find them." Adrien quickly stood up and headed to the kitchen. "How do you know I can't find them?" Claire's voice, tinged with a playful complaint, drifted out. Adrien's tone was gruff, yet it held an intimacy that no one else could penetrate. "Go on. Try. I bet you can't." "I will. I refuse to believe I can't find it." "Hey, you two. Why do you always bicker when you're together? Need any help? We can lend a hand." Adrien's friends crowded into the kitchen, and cheerful laughter soon filled the air. I glanced at the remaining few people, engrossed in a video game. There were so many people in this house, yet I had no one to talk to. I felt a warmth at my feet. A beautiful white ragdoll cat was rubbing affectionately against my leg. This cat, Leo, was a gift from Maya, but Adrien had been the one looking after him. "My little princess can't even take care of herself, and she wants to raise a cat." That's what Adrien had said, smiling and stroking my hair. When I had excitedly proposed raising Leo myself. "I have you, Adrien. If I don't know how, I know you will." "Oh, you." I held Leo and zoned out, until Claire came out. Seeing me with the cat, she walked over quickly. "Miss Hayes, you should go wash your hands. It's time to eat." She naturally took the cat from me. Leo showed no resistance, instead nestling into her arms as if seeking affection. This cat was usually very shy. It took a long time for him to warm up to anyone. I watched Claire's practice movements as she fed Leo, and my already numb heart began to throb with a dull ache. "I don't have an appetite. I'm not eating." With that, I left Adrien's apartment. When I got back to my own place, it wasn't long before I heard the doorbell. It was Adrien. "Alara, what kind of tantrum are you throwing now? We spent all that time in the kitchen just to celebrate your discharge. How could you just leave without a word? Don't you think you're being unreasonable? Can you be a little more considerate?" I ignored him completely. It wasn't until his voice faded that I realized my face was wet with tears. The next day, after Adrien left for work, I went to his place and took Leo. A friend of mine is a cat lover, so giving Leo to her was the best choice. After dropping Leo off, I packed my things and went back to my parents' house. The Hayes family villa was magnificent, exuding elegance and refinement at every turn. Next door was the Chin family, Adrien's family. We had been childhood sweethearts. Everyone who knew us knew I was spoiled rotten by him. Growing up, the person I loved to cling to most was Adrien. My mom told me that during my first birthday tradition, where a baby chooses an object to predict their future, I ignored everything else and crawled straight to Adrien, clinging to him and refusing to let go. And Adrien, 3 years my senior, just sat there, holding me, not daring to move. They said it was the first time they had ever seen such a look of grave seriousness on the usually stoic face of little Adrien. People still bring it up to this day. The first word I learned to say wasn't Mama or Dada, but his name. My parents were jealous for a long time. Being back here, my mind was always filled with thoughts of Adrien. My parents were surprised by my sudden return, but mostly happy. After dinner, I went to find my father in his study. All right, spit it out. You've been unhappy ever since you got home. Did someone wrong you out there? Without a word, I placed a photo of Adrien and Clare on his desk. My father, who had been smiling at me, saw the picture of the two of them, looking a little too close, and his expression immediately soured. My father knew what kind of person Adrien was. Adrien's feelings for Clare were special, a kind of special that used to belong only to me. I've never been one to tolerate others coveting what's mine, be it toys or clothes. Anything that could be taken from me, I disdained to keep. My meaning in showing my father the photo was simple. I was done with Adrien. My father was silent for a moment before speaking. Alara, how do you want to handle this? I want to break off our engagement. Adrien and I had gotten together after our final exams. On the very first day, he brought his family to my house to propose our engagement. My father had given him plenty of disapproving looks for that. In a few days, when Adrien's parents get back, we'll go talk to them about this. My father paused for a moment, then spoke slowly. All right. I lowered my head, my voice flat as I replied, but a warm tear fell onto my hand. When my father pried my hand open, I realized my nails had dug so deeply into my palm that it was a bloody mess. That night, Adrien called me, his voice frantic. Alara, Leo is gone. I came back from work and he was nowhere to be found. I gave him away. I cut Adrien off. The next second, an angry female voice came through the phone. Miss Hayes, you've gone too far. Why would you give Leo away? Don't you think that's incredibly irresponsible? Miss Hayes, after having Leo for so long, don't you have any feelings for him? Why would you just give him away like that? I don't know what hurt more. The fact that Clare was using Adrien's phone to speak to me like this while he remained silent, or the fact that Clare was still with Adrien at this hour. I didn't listen any further. After hanging up, I rushed to the bathroom and threw up. Once I recovered, I blocked all of Adrien's contact information. Maya knew I was in a bad mood, so she dragged me out of the house under the pretense of a shopping trip. I accompanied her listlessly. The weather was beautiful today. Maya loved fashion and enjoyed buying all sorts of expensive jewelry. As I watched her browse in the jewelry store, I couldn't help but be impressed by the beautiful pieces. I've never lacked for such things. As an only child, I was always pampered by my family. Besides my parents, Adrien also frequently gifted me jewelry, often worth millions. My mom said that even as a child, Adrien loved to buy me all sorts of gifts. The things he bought me could fill several rooms, but I still loved looking at beautiful jewelry. After we finished shopping, Maya and I were happily heading back when someone suddenly stood in front of me. Alara, what are you doing here? I recognized him. It was Claire's brother, Ethan. I frowned, not wanting to deal with him. Seeing me ignore him, Ethan actually tried to grab my wrist. Maya, quick as a flash, grabbed his hand. What do you think you're doing? Maya's face darkened. Ethan froze, then snatched his hand back, breaking free from her grasp. Alara, do you rich girls always look down on people like this? I said hello and you didn't even reply. I looked at Ethan, my eyes cold. And who are you that I should reply? A sales clerk nearby, who had been watching the scene, couldn't help but chuckle. This jewelry store was owned by my family. Maya and I came here occasionally, so the staff knew me. Seeing my disdain for Ethan, a clerk immediately came over to escort him out. Being kicked out like this in front of everyone, Ethan was furious. He tried to approach me again but was blocked by my bodyguards. Alara, how can you be so insulting? No wonder Adrien says you're high maintenance, with a princess complex. Who do you think you are? Hearing his words, Maya instinctively glanced at me. Seeing her worry, I patted her hand reassuringly. Ethan, if it weren't for Adrien, do you think someone like you would even have the right to see me? Ethan was Claire's brother, and I had met him a few times because of her. He always acted as if he looked down on me, thinking I was spoiled and difficult. Basically, his attitude was that if it weren't for my family name, I was nothing. He even thought I was wasting money when I changed my designer bags every few days. I really wanted to know what went on in his head. I was born into the Hayes family. I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I was raised and pampered by my family. Forget changing bags. I had the capital to use one and throw it away. What kind of delusion gave him the right to comment on my life? Where did he get the audacity to expect me to give him the time of day? Throw him out. Ignoring his furious shouts, I spoke directly to the bodyguards. And don't let him appear in front of me again. The bodyguards swiftly grabbed Ethan and dragged him away. He was still cursing and shouting something, but I had no interest in what it was. It wasn't until I got home that an unknown message appeared on my phone. It was a video. I clicked on it. The setting looked like a bar, and the angle was hidden. Probably a secret recording, but that didn't matter. I could clearly see Adrien in the video. Adrien, was that Miss Hayes calling you? Why didn't you answer? Claire was sitting next to Adrien. Very close. I don't want to deal with it. She's so inconsiderate. Day in and day out. If only she were half as considerate as you. Adrien's voice was as cold and detached as ever. He had a beautiful voice. There was a time when I had insomnia. No matter how busy he was, Adrien would call me every night. He would talk me to sleep before continuing with his work. Even during the busiest time when he had just taken over the company, there were no exceptions. That voice, once like honey to me, was now like a poison dagger, stabbing my heart and lungs, over and over. I don't know how I got back to my room. I went mad, smashing everything Adrien had ever given me to pieces. It wasn't until my mother was holding me and crying that I realized I had cuts all over my body, still bleeding. I hugged my mother back, but no sound would come from my throat. When I was little, my parents were busy. I was always left with Adrien. You could say Adrien raised me. He knew all my preferences, what I liked to eat, what I didn't. I was a picky eater, but if Adrien told me to eat something I disliked, I would eat it with a grimace. Adrien taught me how to write. Adrien helped me with my homework. Adrien loved me for so many years. And Adrien was the one who hurt me the most. Adrien's parents returned quickly. My parents and I went to their house. To my surprise, Adrien was also back. And not just him. Claire was with him. Adrien seemed not to have expected to see my parents and me at his house. A rare look of panic crossed his face. His voice was rushed. Alara, Mr. and Mrs. Hayes. Miss Hayes, please don't misunderstand. I was just accompanying Mr. Chin to get some files. Claire spoke up from the side, but no one in the room paid her any attention. Adrien walked quickly to my side, trying to take my hand, but I pulled away. He immediately knelt beside me, looking at me cautiously. I ignored him and continued to look at his parents. Mr. Chen, as we just agreed, let's cancel the engagement between Adrien and me. What cancellation? Alara, you want to cancel our engagement? Please don't throw a tantrum. You can't joke about something like this. Adrien grabbed my hand, his grip so tight it hurt. All right. Adrien's father sighed helplessly. As soon as he spoke, Adrien stood up, his emotions flaring. All right. I don't agree. Alara, let's not joke about this. Okay. I can't take it. Adrien, are you out of your mind? The engagement is cancelled. What are you making a scene for? Adrien's father, furious, threw his wine glass at him. He used all his strength, and it struck Adrien's head, drawing blood. Adrien instinctively covered the wound. Alara, don't look. It will scare you. I was afraid of blood, so Adrien was always extra careful about such things. I finally looked at him, but without a word. I stood up and left with my parents. Adrien tried to follow, but his father called him back. I couldn't hear what they said. Back home, my mother said she would sleep with me tonight. My father's face fell so visibly. I stuck my tongue out at my father playfully and snuggled into my mother's arms, closing my eyes. When my mother's breathing became steady, I opened my eyes. Ever since the landslide, I had been suffering from insomnia, often staying up all night. Soon, it started to rain heavily outside, accompanied by thunder. The room was well soundproofed, so the thunder wasn't too loud. I thought for a moment, then walked to the balcony. Unexpectedly, I saw Adrien downstairs. I was afraid of thunder. When I was little, I would cry for Adrien whenever it thundered. If I was at his house or he was at mine, I would hug the doll he gave me and go find him. Adrien would patiently tuck me into bed, turn on a small lamp, and tell me stories. He would only go to sleep after I had fallen asleep. When I got older and it wasn't appropriate to sleep together anymore, he would call me or sit by my bed, talking to me. Another clap of thunder pulled me back from my memories. As if sensing something, Adrien looked up, but the glass was one way. He couldn't see me. Not daring to look at him any longer, I slowly sat on the floor, hugging my knees, and drifted into memories of the past. Adrien occupied such an important place in my life. For the past 20-something years, my memories were filled with him. My parents were always busy. They spent less time with me than Adrien did. If my parents couldn't make it to my parent-teacher conferences, Adrien would be the one to go, because the elementary and middle schools I attended were the same as his. So, in elementary school, my biggest fear was running into my teachers with Adrien on the way home. Whenever I was mischievous, they would earnestly report me to Adrien. Then Adrien would put on a stern face and make me copy texts. I would always cry halfway through, and he would always soften and let me off. Copying texts was my family's way of punishing me for misbehaving, though most of the time, Adrien secretly did it for me. Whenever I was punished, Adrien would bring lots of snacks to my house. He would wipe away my tears and have me sit and eat while I watched him copy for me. Adrien, your handwriting is too good. Make it uglier, or Dad will find out. I know. You need to practice your handwriting. You know that. Oh. Every time my dad looked at the punishment I handed in, he would always look like he wanted to say something. Because, basically 2/3 of it was copied by Adrien. Our handwriting was worlds apart. Anyone could tell at a glance. Later, when he realized that no matter how much he punished me, Adrien was the one who suffered, he started to give me token punishments. I didn't become more obedient, but Adrien's handwriting got better and better. After my dad realized this trick didn't work on me, he never made me copy texts again. But Adrien learned the trick. Our teenage years were the happiest time for us. I wasn't completely oblivious to the changes in him later on. I had sponsored Clare through college. She was indeed very outstanding. We weren't in the same major. I had heard her name from my roommate. She was truly exceptional. Despite her very poor family background, she still got into this university, and her grades were always at the top of her major. My involvement with her came about because I happened to hear that her family wouldn't let her continue her studies. So I sponsored her. I never gave it much thought until she came to thank me. I saw Adrien freeze for a moment when he saw her. At that time, Clare was like a strong pine tree, radiating a spirit of self-reliance. I think Adrien had never met a girl like her, because in our circle, everyone we knew came from very well-off families. No one ever had to worry about money. Clare was gentle yet strong, and she didn't need Adrien to treat her with kid gloves. She was sensible, reasonable, gentle, and graceful. A complete contrast to my high-maintenance, pampered princess personality. When I opened my eyes again, I saw my mother had wrapped a blanket around both of us. Our heads were resting against each other as we slept. I smiled and gently moved my mother's hand. She quickly opened her eyes. These old bones. Sleeping like this is really uncomfortable. Get up. Get up. Let's go have breakfast. My mother didn't say anything. I smiled and nuzzled her shoulder. Okay. When I got dressed and went out, I saw Adrien. He looked terrible, probably from being in the rain all night. His face was pale, without a trace of color. Alara, why didn't you answer my calls yesterday? Were you scared during the thunderstorm? Did you sleep well last night? I looked at Adrien calmly. Adrien, I'm not a child. My fear of thunder was from my childhood. Lately, it had just been an excuse to hear his voice more, to talk to him more. Now there was no need. Why would I still say I was afraid of thunder? Adrien knew me best. He knew what I meant. I was really giving up on him. Adrien's face grew even paler. He looked like he was about to collapse. His eyes were red. So red it was piercing. I instinctively turned my head away and was about to leave. Alara, I'm begging you, please. I was wrong. I was really wrong. Adrien's hand, gripping mine, was shaking. A warm drop fell onto my hand. I was surprised. This was the first time I had ever seen Adrien cry. But I still pulled my hand back. Adrien, you know what I'm like. I've always been one to choose shattering over compromise. No one can make me suffer in silence. Adrien was crying so hard his voice choked. He moved his pale, bloodless lips with great effort, but couldn't get a single word out. Adrien, let's just leave it at this. I ignored him and walked away. The next time I heard Adrien's name was a month later. It was his mother who called me. Alara, can you come see Adrien? He hasn't eaten or drunk anything in a long time. I thought about it and agreed to see him, because his mother had always been very good to me, and I didn't want to refuse her. When I got to the hospital, she hugged me. Just go see him. That's all. I won't ask for anything more. I know he was in the wrong. I'm so sorry, Alara, for making you suffer. I patted her hand reassuringly and comforted her for a while. When she had calmed down, I went to Adrien's room. As soon as I entered, I saw Adrien on the bed. He had lost a lot of weight. His hands, usually so well defined, were now just prominent blue veins. I sighed, looking at the 4-line in his hand, as if sensing my presence. The person with closed eyes opened them. His eyes, which had been empty and lifeless, suddenly lit up. Alara. Adrien sat up recklessly, grabbing my hand tightly. He stared at me without blinking, as if afraid I would disappear the next second. Alara, am I dreaming? You came to see me. Alara, do I look terrible right now? Are you scared? This is the longest you've ever ignored me. I miss you so much. I'm going crazy, probably from not speaking for so long. Adrien's voice was like an old machine, with a stiff, unnatural quality. I looked at the bloodshot veins in his eyes and the dark circles underneath, and froze for a moment before finding a chair to sit down. Adrien, was it tiring being with me? I finally spoke after looking at him for a while. Hearing my words, Adrien froze. He stiffly pulled his lips into a smile that was uglier than crying. No, Alara, I've never thought that. Adrien held my hand tightly and lowered his head. Adrien had always been proud. He had never bowed his head to anyone or anything, except for me. You know I can't lie to you, and you can't lie to me either. From the day I was born, our lives were intertwined. For over 20 years, no one knew each other better than we did. I knew he hadn't fallen for Clare. He didn't like her, but being with Clare made him feel relaxed. Adrien felt that being with me was tiring, while being with Clare was easy. This realization was more devastating than when he chose to save Clare instead of me on that mountainside. Alara, no, it's not like that. It's really not. Please believe me. It's just that I love you too much. I'm so scared. So scared that I'm not good enough. So scared that if you see my flaws, you'll stop liking me. Just the thought of that possibility drives me crazy. Adrien's emotions grew more and more unstable. He pulled me into a helpless embrace, his voice mournful and desperate. I just love you too much. I can't live without you. Alara, please. Forgive me, please. I sighed and pushed him away. Get well. Your parents are very worried about you. Alara, I'll be good. I'll get well. Just don't ignore me, please. Without answering him, I left the room. As soon as I was out, I saw his mother sitting on a chair. We found a place to sit. She held my hand, lost in thought. I heard from your mother that you've been taking sleeping pills. Is it because of Adrien? I nodded. Ever since I discovered Adrien's special treatment of Clare, I had been unable to sleep at night. These past few days, when he's awake, all he does is drink. When he's drunk, he calls your name. He's been going crazy lately, always on the verge of a breakdown. He never cried much as a child. I've barely seen him cry. After he had you, his little shadow, he always acted like a big brother. He said he wanted to be a role model for you, and he never cried again. But these past few days, I've often heard soft whimpering from his room. Were you in that much pain too? Listening to her gentle words, I thought back to the time when I first discovered something was off between Adrien and Clare. At that time, I truly felt like my world was collapsing. I just couldn't imagine why Adrien would be attracted to someone else. I thought maybe he was tired of being with me for so long. So he became interested in someone with a completely different personality. Even though he loved me, he still gave up on me many times, just to pursue that so-called thrill. But after completely losing me, he acted so full of regret. It was laughable. If I hadn't loved him so much, maybe I wouldn't have cared. Because I knew couples who were together in arranged marriages, who were respectful but distant after marriage, never interfering in each other's lives. After that, I never went to see Adrien again. Instead, I threw myself into my work. Most of the time, I was so busy I barely had time to sleep. But my days were very fulfilling. It wasn't until Clare appeared before me again that I felt a jolt of recognition. I hadn't thought about her or Adrien in a long time. Clare looked terrible, with dark circles under her eyes. She blocked my path on my way home from work. I didn't want to get entangled with her, but she stood firmly in front of me, refusing to move. Reluctantly, I agreed to talk. You have everything. Why can't you just let me have Adrien? Clare stared at me, her voice shrill with emotion. Did you deliberately have my roommate mention you to me, so that you would sponsor me? Was it because you wanted to get to know Adrien through me? I had been suspicious ever since I noticed Clare and Adrien getting close. Why had my roommate suddenly brought up Clare, and always casually mentioned her family situation? My mother had always been involved in charities that sponsored poor students, so I had followed suit. So when I sponsored Clare, I didn't think much of it. After all, her family's financial situation was indeed dire. But it wasn't until a former college roommate asked me in our group chat when Adrien and I were getting married, and I told them we had broken up, that the friend who had told me about Clare's family situation messaged me privately. She asked if Clare was the reason Adrien and I broke up. I was surprised she would think of Clare, since I hadn't mentioned the reason for our breakup. Actually, back then, it was Clare who asked me to ask you if you could sponsor her. We were high school classmates, so I mentioned it to you after she asked. It was only later that I found out that although her family was poor, she actually had enough money for school. Clare is from a single-parent family, and her mother had to support both Clare and her brother. But her father was actually quite well off. He would send living expenses to Clare's mother every month. But her mother gambled it all away, which is why their family looked like they couldn't even afford school. But Clare's father had already saved up enough money for her and her brother's education. He gave the money directly to them, not to their mother. I only found this out after graduation, when I went back to my hometown and overheard people talking. Back in our freshman year, I saw a picture of Adrien on Clare's phone, but I didn't think much of it at the time. I stared at the messages she sent me for a long time. In the end, besides feeling a sense of absurdity, all I felt was a bitter taste in my heart. Clare suddenly burst out laughing, looking a bit deranged. Yes, I did it on purpose. I used you to get close to Adrien. His eyes are only for you. I've liked him for so many years, but he wouldn't even give me a second glance. I was so jealous. I was mad with jealousy. Why does he only ever pay attention to you? He only even remembered my name because of you. Hearing Clare's words, I was stunned. You've liked Adrien for a long time. You knew him before. I met Adrien when I went to the provincial competition in high school. I've liked him ever since. If only you weren't around. Before I could react, someone covered my mouth and nose from behind. When I opened my eyes again, I was tied to a stone pillar on a pier by the sea. The tide was already rising, the water up to my waist. Clare was insane. I struggled with all my might, but Clare had tied the ropes so tightly I couldn't break free. As the water began to cover my mouth and nose, in a daze, I thought I saw Adrien. When I woke up in the hospital, my parents were both there, looking at their haggard faces and the new white hairs. I regretted my decision to use myself as bait to see what Clare would do. I should have just ignored her. I had made my parents worry so much. Maya's eyes were red from crying. Through her tears, she told me that Clare and her brother were in prison. When Clare had come to find me, I had called Maya. Thanks to Maya's quick thinking, she had recorded our conversation, coupled with my parents' determination to make Clare pay. Their prison sentence was unavoidable. Clare has some serious mental issues. Whatever she wants, she has to have. In high school, a classmate had similar grades to her. and both were candidates for a university scholarship. Claire led a campaign of social exclusion against that student, to the point where they dropped out of high school. I listened quietly. It was a long time before I spoke. What about Adrien? Maya fell silent. I wasn't in a hurry. I just watched her quietly. After a long moment, she lowered her head, avoiding my gaze. Adrien was the one who found you. By the time we arrived, he had already rescued you. His condition isn't good. Adrien's mother, who had been watching over him, saw me and, after asking a few concerned questions, left the room, leaving us alone. Adrien lay on the bed, his eyes closed, looking incredibly frail. Maya had told me the chances of him waking up were slim. I sat by his bed and took his hand. Ever since the doctor said I could be discharged, I had been visiting Adrien every day. Most of the time, I would just stare at him in a daze. Other times, I would tell him about my day. 3 months passed without me realizing it. Adrien, say something to me. I rested my head on Adrien's bed, burying my face in the blankets in frustration. The next second, I felt a very light touch on my head. Looking at Adrien in disbelief, I saw him looking at me gently. When Adrien was discharged, I didn't go to pick him up. From the moment he woke up, I had started to reduce my visits to the hospital, so much so that every time I went, Adrien would quietly complain that I didn't care about him. But when I was about to answer, he would change the subject, subconsciously avoiding it. I knew he was worried I would get angry and stop visiting him altogether. Once, when I was resting with my eyes closed, Adrien, thinking I was asleep, carefully slipped a ring onto my ring finger. He kissed my ring finger with exceptional reverence. Alara, I love you. Adrien's lips were a little cool. When they touched my hand, my breath hitched, but thankfully, he didn't notice. He quickly took the ring off again. When I woke up, he continued to act as if nothing had happened. When Adrien was discharged, I was already preparing to move abroad. He called me when I was at the airport. I guessed his mother had told him I was leaving. I'm sorry. I held the phone for a long time, but Adrien didn't speak. I waited patiently until the boarding announcement began. Then, in a hoarse voice, Adrien finally said he was sorry. I smiled calmly. Goodbye, Adrien. I couldn't just forget everything that had happened. From the moment a third person could so easily insert themselves into our relationship, I had already killed the Alara who had once loved Adrien so deeply. From now on, our paths would stretch far and wide, but they would never cross again.